countrypreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast, our weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week, and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner via Zoom, Dan Youngblood, and tonight, Dan, our guest is Josh Fostel, the head boys basketball coach out at Eula.
Yeah, it's good to have Coach Fostel on this week. Often when we have a guest, it's for some timely reason with Coach Fostel. It's that he's got the Eula Pirates back in the state tournament for the third time in his tenure there. So just a tremendous job this year by him. I think a strong argument can be made that this is one of the best coaching jobs he's done there, which is saying a ton because he's had a ton of success there. But this Eula group is good, obviously. You get to a state tournament, you have talent. You can't get to state without talent. But I don't know if I'd say that this is one of the most talented teams he's had. So to get them to the state semifinals is a tremendous accomplishment. They had to win some really tough games to get there. So I'm excited to talk to him about that, just about getting this team as far as he got, some of the challenges they went through. And I think it'll be a fun conversation with Coach Fostel tonight.
Okay, before we jump into this week's show, we need to thank our primary sponsor, Capital Farm Credit, with offices all over Texas, including Stanford and Abilene. Buy your own slice of Texas with Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. And before we jump into Eula basketball and the conversation that we got upcoming with Josh Fostel, yeah, we had some remarkable performances from last week that we need to that bear mentioning. Number one, a guy that I know you're going to like, Tate Williams, who's going to be going to your alma mater, Baylor, to play football, threw a shot put 57.85, which is a new Wall School record. Now that broke a record at Wall that was on the books for more than 50 years. 1969, I believe, is when that the former record was set, and he shattered it by 2.5 feet. Now, I don't think at my age, I don't think I could throw a rock 57 feet, much less a shot put.
No, it's really remarkable. And Tate's one of those kids that, like you said, he is going to Baylor to play football, but he's just a great athlete. He's a guy who helped their basketball team in the post. Obviously, a very good track and field athlete as well. So a guy that can just do a lot of different things well. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do at Baylor, but I'm also excited to see what he's able to do for the remainder of this track season with Wall.
All right, another remarkable performance from last week. Lolly Gutierrez, Stanford Jr., who is going to be pitching for UT in the near future. She threw a no-hitter against Eastland in which she struck out 20 batters, a no-hitter with 20 Ks, for crying out loud. And really, it's going to get to the point of where these are, I mean, you hear these numbers and they're astonishing, but as good as she is becoming, it's going to become second. It's like old hat. She's that good.
Yeah. And you never want to take those kind of performances for granted because there's nothing normal about those. But you talk about the player she's becoming, and really she's been remarkable since she stepped on campus there at Stanford. So she's only getting better and starting from a really strong foundation. So a very fun one to watch. She's another one of those that is just awesome. And at that level, at the 2A level, it's almost unfair. But she's one of those that I think that she could play and dominate at any level of high school base or softball. And that's indicative of the fact that she's going to be going to play D1 college softball. So she's a great story. It's going to be really, really fun to watch what she's able to do before she leaves Stanford.
Now, her career numbers, I mean, right now, her career numbers, she's had 566 career strikeouts. That's her freshman season with just a very limited portion of her sophomore. She lost most of her sophomore season due to COVID. Vast majority of it was wiped out. And then just the little bit that we've got now. And she's already got 566 Ks. And she had been able to play her entire sophomore season last year. We're talking, she'd probably be at 800 Ks already right now, and perhaps pushing over 1,000 before she's a senior. That's astonishing. Yeah. Of course, now they gunned her at 65. They gunned her at 65 when she was a freshman. Yeah, and there are college pitchers right now in the NCAAs that are throwing 65, and they gunned her at 65 when she was like 14 years old as a freshman. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah, you don't get these types of talents come through that often. And when you do, you usually can tell really quickly how good they are. And she's one of those. Yeah. Alyssa Washington is also at UT from Abilene High. She's one of those. But you can tell when you get these girls that or boys in other sports that are that caliber of talent, that are Division I caliber talent, you can tell pretty quickly that there's something that sets them apart, athletically, skill wise. And she's definitely one of those that we've had an eye on since she was a freshman, knowing that she was going to be have some really big things ahead of her. And it's cool to see her really starting to get closer and closer to that potential she has, because her potential is nearly unlimited. It's pretty crazy to watch, like you said.
Well, the crackling sound that the catcher's mitt makes when pitchers like this are warming up kind of gives it away. That pop. You wonder if there's a lightning storm coming around. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all it was. Balls off Alyssa Washington's bat were the same way. Like it just sounded different off her bat. So those types of players are just kind of built a little different, but they're fun to watch. When you get those players come through that have that type of ability, it's really, really fun to watch.
All right, before we jump into our conversation with Coach Fostel, another performance that we need to mention from last week. He made our top 10 for our Big Country Preps Player of the Week. Dakota Bowles, Dan, hit some very big shots last week in wins over Erie County, and then of course Westbrook, both of which were 1-point wins. But really, maybe the play of the week, last week, he goes up and he blocks a shot with less than 3 seconds to play, a potential game-winning shot for Westbrook, and he comes away, and we had the photos of it. It was a clean block, a great play.
Yeah, and it wasn't just any block. You're blocking a kid in Elisha Stark, who's a big kid, a guy who's strong inside the post. And for Dakota, who's given up a lot of weight there, to go ahead and make that kind of strong block to kind of save a game was really impressive. But Bull's one of those kids that just watching him, he kind of commands the court. You can tell and Eula's got several players who make big plays for him, but Dakota's kind of that kid that makes him go. And it's been fun to watch him develop. We've gotten to see him play for that varsity team for several years now, and he's gotten better every year. And he's one of those guys, he doesn't need to score a ton of points. He can score 11 points and really impact a game. And I think we saw something pretty similar to that in that region championship game against Westbrook, which is an instant classic. That was an awesome basketball game. Could have gone either way. And Bowles made some huge plays in that to make sure that it went the Pirates' way. So, yeah, he's another one that deserves a lot of credit for what he's done to help Eula get to that level.
All right, we want to, before we bring Coach Fostel on, we want to thank our sponsors. Again, first and foremost, Capital Farm Credit, who brings you these Wednesday night podcasts free of charge throughout the school year. Also, for the Love of the Game broadcasting, and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, KATX 97.7 FM out of Eastland, Classic Country, AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breck, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is for the Love of the Game broadcasting. Also, Phil Hill of the Abilene Realtors Group, big supporter of local athletics. If you're in the market, give Phil a call at 325-669-5153 or visit his website at philhillproperties.com. And finally, Jack's Road Boring in Snyder, dirt sales and services with experience and service you can count on. Larry Green is the man to phone out there. Give him a shout at 325-575-8004. That's Jack's Road Boring in Snyder. And with that, Dan, it is time to bring on one of the best and maybe most underrated coaches in the Big Country. This guy has been Mr. Consistency ever since I've been in this area, and I've been around for a while now, 15 years. Every year, year in, year out, Josh Fostel of Eula puts a good product on the floor. Maybe it's just an excellent product.
Yeah, he does. And I think maybe among some of the fans of maybe larger schools, he maybe overlooked some. But one thing about him is the coaches that he coaches against all know the type of coach he is. I mean, there's no question among those who compete with him, just the level of coach that he is. And I think you're right. He's one of those that obviously cares deeply about what he's doing, and is just really good at putting together good quality teams that do the things that he wants them to do on the court. They always play great defense. They're always very fundamentally sound. And that's why I think a team like this year's, which does maybe have some what you might call traditional holes, they don't have a whole lot of size. It's really a four guard, one big lineup most of the time, but they find ways to get the job done. I mean, you're talking about a team that has maybe two kids over 6 feet tall, maybe one kid over 6 feet tall. Now that I think about it,
they're tough mentally,
and they're able to get to the state tournament just because they have kids that do what they need to do. They play great defense. They find ways to get rebounds. That's something they did really well against Westbrook. So he's a guy that gets the absolute most out of his teams, and that is always, at least to the regional tournament, generally speaking, or at least in the regional tournament conversation. So, I think he's one of those that, definitely deserves to be mentioned anytime you're talking about the big country's top boys basketball coaches.
And I mentioned how tough this year's team is out of Eula, because I cannot remember them facing as much adversity as this year, and they have played their way all the way to the regional tournament. Overcoming injuries and overcoming the death of Mary Mosley, a longtime scorekeeper, who was just an integral part of that program and a kind of a fixture in the community out there. And it's just been a heartbreaking situation out there for everybody involved. And they have just put their nose to the grindstone and just played really tough, great, sound basketball. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah, that has been. And I will say, just to mention Miss Mosley, that was really sad news. When I heard that it happened, I got really sad about that, just because she was such a fixture out there, such kind of an institution out in Eula, a woman who didn't have to do what she did in terms of being a part of that program and being their scorekeeper for years and years and years. I mean, I've been out here 14 years. I don't remember ever going to a Eula game that she wasn't at the table with her striped shirt on, Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was tough news, and I'm sure it hit that team really hard. I know that she and Coach Fostel were really close, so I'm sure this has been a really tough and trying year on him. And I'm sure in some ways, and I talked about this, and he said in some ways kind of felt like they kind of honored her memory maybe a little bit by being able to make this run. So,
all right, and with that, it's just about time to bring him on.
Yeah, it looks like he's ready. So let's go.
And joining us now via Zoom, Eula boys basketball coach Josh Fostel. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Coach, you're going back to state again. You've been there before. Does the thrill of getting there ever diminish at all? I bet it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Like I said, unless you're one of the 1 or 2, 3 programs in the state that seems to be there every year, it just never goes away. And it's just so hard to get there. We've had some really good teams. It's been 10 years. We've had some really good teams and never could quite get back. So it's a great feeling for these kids to get to experience it.
And Coach, y'all earned that opportunity with just a tremendous game in the region championship game, a 1-point win over Westbrook. In that one, obviously an emotional win on the floor, and then his emotional time after the game. I guess just kind of describe that game a little bit and kind of some of the feelings you had after earning that win.
Yeah, it's just always trying to get to state, of course, but this year, to do it this year is really special for this group of kids. Just going back a year ago when all the COVID stuff started, losing touch with some of them, and then not having the normal summer that we usually have, which is really important for trying to get guys ready when you're replacing a bunch of players. Then we had a kid move that probably would have been a starter, and so and then we get into the season, we've got an injury to a starter, and then we had like 3 or 4 separate COVID related quarantines of guys that were starters. So we come into district at 7-9. And it's a little misleading because we play tough people, but just to have that year where we were, going into district, and finally get everybody back to start district, and now, win 14 straight games, it makes it really special. And then, like we talked about then, just this year in our community, losing Miss Mosley was really hard on our community, and she was such a big part of our community and our basketball program that we just like I was telling Evan, I couldn't think of the word the other night. It sounds a little corny, but we kind of feel like she's with us there in those 1 possession games, and we've caught some breaks, but you have to in order to keep advancing a lot of times.
Coach, you've had a trying season. Can you talk a little bit about how your kids met that challenge? In a roundabout way, this is kind of why we have athletics, is to teach the kids to meet challenges like this.
Yeah, definitely. When we set, I think we went to Hamilton early in the year without Dakota Bowles, without I can't remember who else. We had 2 other starters, so we had basically 2 kids that played on the JV all year start for us that game. And but we had a freshman that's been a big part now. And he immediately gets thrown in like game 3 or 4 into a role where we need you to score and a lot, And so we talked all year through that about how, I felt like this was preparing him for something greater. later on, the adversity that we were facing. And just, it doesn't always work out like this, obviously, but just the fact that it's kind of rang true for us that it was preparing us. It was preparing us, to have him play a big role and have those guys that had to step in play a big role in the playoffs. So it's been really gratifying.
And Coach, you touched on this one, but obviously Mary Mosley was such a big part of y'all's community, like you said, such a big part of y'all's program. She was one that we always enjoyed seeing out at y'all's tournament, and we would go out to cover y'all's games. And like you said, she's kind of an institution out there in Eula. So obviously, very, very difficult to lose her this year. I just wanted to give you a chance just to kind of tell us in your own words just what she meant to you personally, and kind of how hard has it been to not see her out at some of those games that you normally would?
Yeah, I could talk about Mary all day, and I've said a lot already, and there's not much that hasn't been said, but she was just such. For 40 years, she was a huge part of this place, and for me personally, when I got to Eula, I was 25 years old. Felt really lucky to have gotten the job. Didn't know a lot of people, and so she immediately became my biggest ally. She just so supportive of everything we do, and like I said, never missed a bus. She was on every bus, every game, and so when you have somebody like that, and that's such an integral part of everything you do, and she did much more than just the basketball for our community, but it's just, you start, just like us all, you think, man, they're invincible and they're always going to be around. And, realistically, we knew, Mary was 85 years old, and that at some time for all of us, that day would come. But it's just when it does, it's hard to, it's kind of hard to adjust. And so we catch ourselves you don't realize everything she did until she's not here. And so it was a tough, a tough time for a lot of people in our community, and many that knew her much longer than I did. But she was just like I, told many, what was so great about her is that she is someone that most of the stuff she did didn't receive a paycheck for. And so, the lesson she leaves us with is just how to serve others when you're not, getting anything in return that we can see. So.
Coach, this group of kids that you've got this year strikes me as exceptionally tough mentally. Can you talk a little bit about that? Unless I'm wrong, they seem like a really tough group of kids mentally.
Yeah, they are, and I think this year has kind of hardened them. The trials that our team has been through has kind of hardened them. But and I say this with all due understanding that I've got some talented kids, but it's not one of the most talented kids, our teams that we've had out here. But the fact that they're able to advance the way we have this year, it comes down to some of those high pressure situations they've handled really well. And so that's a big part, like you said earlier, of athletics, is trying to mentally be able to handle the challenges that you're going to face every day. And they've done a great job so far in the playoffs, especially.
And Coach, we've talked about it the past couple of weeks, that there were some moving parts with this team, some new kids stepping into roles they hadn't been in before. How important was it then for the seniors that you did have coming back to kind of help these kids get to where they needed to be?
Yeah, they took them on, once we started to be able to play a little bit towards the end of the summer and into the fall, they took them on and realized that, they would be important. And then our seniors have just, all three of them have played a huge role. Jayton Jones the other night hit some really big shots for us, which is what you need your seniors to do. In the regional semi, Dakota Bowles hit, two really big shots, and then another night to make that block. To advance, you've got to have a senior that's willing, to make those plays and that can make those plays. So they've done a great job, not only filling a role that seniors have to, as far as making plays, but they've also brought along these freshmen and sophomores that are helping out and just really led them in a positive way.
And Coach, we talked too about how y'all kind of had that barrier there in the regional semis there for a few years. How nice was it just to break through, and particularly break through with a group, like you said, that may not be one of your most talented ones, but just one of those gritty teams that found a way to get it done?
Yeah, it was really nice. It becomes kind of a mental barrier, and of course, it was also nice not facing Slidell, the defending state champion, in the semifinal. Obviously, that I'd be crazy if I didn't think that was a thing that helped. We loved it when we came back west. It was really weird to go east for a couple of years, and it just happened to be at a time, we were talking the other day that the last two regional tournaments in that former region were us, Grayford, Lipan, and Slidell. And this year, Lipan is in the state tournament as a 2A. Grayford got beat in the regional semifinal by Slidell, who's in the state tournament as a 1A, and then we're in the state tournament as a 1A. So that was, the geographic change helped us as far as getting over that hurdle some. And then, like I said, just this group, we've talked about it from day one. We're so perimeter oriented because we're not very big. And so we knew that what kept happening is we got up against somebody pretty good and we didn't shoot the ball well from the perimeter. So what I was really proud of, especially in those first 2 or 3 playoff wins, is we were able to create offense without, and we didn't shoot the ball very well from the 3-point line. Now, we knew eventually we were going to need to, and the other night we did. So that's been something that's our focus all year offensively, is getting to where we know to keep advancing. You're going to have a bad night shooting the ball at some point. So we knew to keep advancing. Even though we're not big, we can't really pound it inside, but we've got to find a way to create offense without just relying on the 3-pointer. So that's something this group's been able to do, and it's kind of, to me, pushed us over the hump.
Coach, most of the kids on your team, I'm sure, grew up in and around Eula and watched your program have all this success over the years, and then they went through your program expecting success. How much of a factor has that been this year, especially with these 2 tough ball games that you've just survived? How much has your history helped them?
Yeah, I think so. And it does every year. Every year we sit in the locker room, and just like most teams, most times it's after a loss, unless you win the state championship. And at some point this year, we're going to be sitting in a locker room after either a loss or hopefully winning the state championship. And you look at your seniors and you don't know, how could we ever replace those guys? And somehow, I just think it's in these kids, they just continue, they get to work, and all of a sudden you turn around and you got a guy like Dakota Bowles, who was not very good in 8th grade, and he'll tell you that, but they just find a way to continue to keep improving. And I don't want to say it's pressure, but there's some sort of feeling in them that feels like, hey, we got to keep this thing going. So I'm just lucky to be in a place where that is the mentality and the culture that we're gonna find a way, and whoever's turn it is next, they're gonna be good enough to be successful.
And you touched on the move back from Region 3 back to Region 2. You touched about kind of the competitive advantage there, maybe, but how nice it's been just to be kind of back in more familiar environment, playing a lot of the teams that you may have a little bit more history with.
Yeah, that's definitely. These are the people we see, at track meets and at cross country meets and all that throughout the year. So it's been nice to be back this way. And like I said, we had really good teams in our region. This region's getting better. There's lots of good basketball, but yeah, there's a lot to it. We would go. Saltillo was in the region we were in, and I don't know if you know where that is, but it's like on the border with Louisiana pretty much. So it's just a better feel out here. We like going to San Angelo for regional stuff and to Abilene for regional stuff instead of going way over there. So it's been a good change. I hope we stay this way in years to come, but you never know.
Coach, you've been at Eula for a long time. You've coached a lot of groups of kids. A lot of them have been very successful. Can you talk a little bit about how many of them you still hear from? How many of them are you still in touch with?
Yeah, that's the most rewarding part of coaching. The other night at our, we had our 10-year celebration of our state tournament team at homecoming this year. I think out of the 12 Kingdoms in California, he came back, and then we got some that live around here, but they're all successful adults, good husbands, good fathers. So them coming back was awesome to see them. But when we have a game like the other night, I think I heard from 5 or 6 former players that were at the game, and then after the game, I got text and emails from some other guys. So I'm pretty demanding as a coach, and you start worrying. You just hope that they know that how much you care about them, and when they come back and when they reach out to you at any point, but especially during these times when you've got another team kind of making a run, it just makes it really gratifying. It makes all those tough days coaching worth it.
Coach, like Gavin said, you have been at Eula a while now. Well, I guess just what is it about that community that's kind of made it home for you, and what is it about that program that's kind of kept you there?
Well, like I told you earlier, when I got here, I was 25, and we had I knew when I got the job that we had a really good 8th grade class that was about to be freshmen. And so my plan at that point was, hey, I'm going to stay here 4 years, try to make it to the state tournament with this group, and then move on to, bigger and better things, I guess. And that was kind of the plan. And luckily we got lucky, and that worked. 2007, we make it to the state tournament. And but then when it was time to say, okay, what's next? Just by that point, I was married. I think 2007 probably had one starting pre-K, and so it just became where and they were so good to me. I mean, there was no reason to really look anywhere else. And once your kids get involved, and your wife gets involved, and they're happy, there's just really no reason to leave. And so at that point, you just kind of buckle down and decide you're going to try to make this the best. Your goal is to make it the best small school basketball program in the state. And we're in a unique situation with basketball being so important in this community. And so it's a great job. I mean, it's a great basketball job. And in this day and age, you don't have to be a 5. I mean, the coaches we go against at the 1A level or 2A level, just in this area, are unbelievable coaches now. And so, you don't have to be at that higher level to experience good coaching and have a good situation. But, the major part there is just the way that the community has taken care of me and my family. And I heard a long time ago, you don't mess with happiness. So I've never really had a reason that I needed to leave.
Coach, you mentioned pressure a little earlier, and you also just mentioned how important basketball is to the Eula community. So how much of that in your position as a coach do you feel? How much pressure is there on your position, and do you enjoy that pressure?
Well, yeah, and that's the other unique thing about our community so far. Our school board and I've never, obviously you do it long enough. Like, there's been some games or some years where we should have gone further, or some games we've lost. And, this has been a place that, and I'm not, naive to think that everybody thinks, oh yeah, he does a good job, but for the most part, and the people that really control whether or not you get to keep your job, your school board, your administration, I've never felt like I was in a situation where, man, I better get this done this year or they're going to run me out of town. So, and it's not like that everywhere. And so that's been great. Most of the pressure, just like most of us coaches, is put on by ourselves. I feel an obligation, kind of like we talked about with our kids. I feel an obligation every year to make sure that we're putting out a good product and that our kids are successful. So it's been I've been lucky to be in a place that has basically allowed me to do my job and supported me win or lose.
Coach, we ask all of our guests this question, and most of them find it difficult. We're going to make you king for a day, and we're going to let you change anything about high school basketball that you want to. It can be a rule change. It can be a different aspect of the game. If you had that power to change something about high school basketball, what would you change?
Okay, so in 2021, I would change the fact that we're not headed to San Antonio for the state semifinal, but that's probably not where you're going with that question. I feel bad for our kids, and our plan is to go tomorrow and win another game and get to go to San Antonio. But they've reached the state tournament, and it's just a different feel. We're going to Denver City instead of San Antonio, so whoever loses these semifinal games, their kids are kind of missing out on a pretty cool experience. That said, I know the UIL has done they've had a lot of hurdles to get through, so we're lucky to be playing. But as far as the game goes, it's probably time, for Texas high school basketball to get a shot clock, and I think that's probably coming at some point. I would look forward to it just because I think it changes the whole strategy of the game and makes it different. So that's something that I think we've discussed a long time, and I think it's probably coming.
And that was actually the next question we were going to ask you, because we also asked all of our basketball coaches their thoughts on that, because it is kind of a topic of debate. How difficult, just logistically, do you think it would be, getting the setup, so that you can have a shot clock and find someone who can work it and those sorts of things, particularly for a small school like yours? How difficult would that be logistically?
Well, when I was on the TABC board of directors, UIL would come in and ask, and it's amazingly still real split as far as you would think. It seems like you always hear from the ones that want it, but there's the logistics problems are there. I think it could be handled, but my major push to the UIL, they were discussing, hey, we're going to make it 4A, 5A, and 6A with a shot clock, but not 1A, 2A, and 3A. And that's the major thing. I'd rather not have it at all. That's the major thing I was against, because, we've been lucky enough to be good enough. And you look at teams like Lipan and Brock and those guys in that area that, we want to be playing the same game that 4A, 5A, and 6A is, because we try to schedule some of those guys at some points when we have years where we're pretty talented. So that was my major push. You either do it for everybody or you leave it the way it is. And there'd be some logistic problems, but look, these guys, we play 6-man football, and there's most of them have a clock there for the play clock and stuff like that. So I think it could be accomplished when they want to do it. But like I said, my major thing is I don't want that would make the 6A, 5A game a totally different game than what we're playing. And so that's what I hope going forward. I just hope if they decide to make the change, they do it across the board.
Coach, what would be your favorite basketball movie? What's that one that you're going to go back to over and over again and watch and never get sick of, and why?
Oh, this is the easy one. It's probably everybody's answer, but it's probably Hoosiers, just because. And I don't even know how great of a movie it is, but it is. I've watched it so many times, and it was kind of the first basketball movie. I can't even remember when it came out, but it was probably when I was pretty young that I remember watching. So that's by far my favorite.
Coach, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. We will obviously, continue following you this year, next year, and as long as you're in the Big Country area. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. So.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all's coverage.
And that was Eula boys basketball coach Josh Fostel. Class act, hardworking guy, and his program tends to mirror his personality year after year.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that conversation. We hit a lot of different topics with him there, and I just enjoyed just hearing what he had to say. He's one of those that I enjoy watching coaching. There's certain coaches that you kind of get to during a game where your attention will be drawn to the sidelines just because of some of the things that they do and some of the ways they interact with their team. And he's one of those for me. I really enjoy watching him engage with his team. It's very clear that that, like you said, that team has taken on his personality, has taken on some of the traits that he brings to the game. And that's always a good basketball team. You will never see a bad Eula basketball team, and he is a big reason for that. So it was good to get him on, and particularly making, like I said before, their third state tournament run in during his tenure there. So remarkable achievement, and I was glad we were able to get him on the podcast.
And that's just about going to wrap things up here on the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast. But before we do that, we want to remind you that we have 3 separate subscription packages here at bigcountrypreps.com. We've got a monthly for $5 a month. We've got a semi-annual 6-month subscription where we knock the price down to $4 a month. And we've got an annual, a 12-month subscription where we knock that price down to $3 a month, $36 for a full year of Big Country High School athletic coverage. And we don't play any games here. We don't say, a nickel a month for your first 3 months if you sign up now and then jack the price up. We don't do that. We don't play any games. We keep it at a very low, reasonable rate, and it stays that way. It never changes.
And we'd also like to remind you that if you see a photo you like in any one of our galleries, it is available for just $7. You can click that small shopping cart icon to the bottom right, follow that prompt, and purchase as many of those you would like. But scrolling through the site, you'll notice we take a whole lot of photos from these games we're at. It's something that both Evan and I enjoy doing, and it's something we're very proud of here at bigcountrypreps.com.
All Big Country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.